Hi, I'm Dr. Clyde Posley, and I am your host for Moves That Matters. We're delighted to have you here this week as a follow-up, a part 2 of our show from last week. We were so excited to have Miss Ashley Gurvitz with us, a city-wide or city-known activist, political activist for the leading the millennial community. And so we're excited to have her back with us. And we're going to get to that interview, part 2 of that interview, in just a moment. I want to remind you about my book, More Than Icons and Images. It's uncovering the hidden protest narrative of the Black American athlete in the 21st century. The image that you see on the screen is of a young man kneeling, but don't get it twisted. This book is not just about athletes kneeling. It's about athletes speaking and using political voice, using their platforms, and how historically they have used their platform to fight the oppressive use of their body and masculinity for ill-gotten gain. And so you can get that book on Amazon.com. You can get that book on my website, drclydeposley.com. And speaking of that, you can also get at least 20 episodes of the Moves That Matters with Dr. Clyde Posley show by going to drclydeposley.com. You can get 20 episodes. Just hit the menu button and then go to the podcast. They will all jump up for you. You can go to my social media page, Dr. Clyde Posley, PhD. You can also visit my Instagram page or Twitter and just hit me up. Let me know you're watching the show. When you watch this show tonight, please hit the share button, because I want to speak to millennials and let them know I am partnering with them to become all of what they can become. This coming fall, we're going to be starting a morning worship service that's directly dedicated to how millennials learn, how they understand, how they worship. And it's going to be at a time that won't break into your sleep either. So we're looking forward to that. I'm going to be right back with my fantastic interview, part 2 with Miss Ashley Gurvitz. You don't want to miss this. I'll be right back. I'm back, and we are glad to have with us again Miss Ashley Gurvitz.
Yes, hi. Thank you for this opportunity.
Excited about your presence here today. Looking forward to another tremendous interview and you pouring out this wealth of information and knowledge that you have. So, as I did on last week, for our viewers who may not have been here, may not have caught the show last week, I want to open up by asking you, as I welcome you, to give us a little bit of background about you and how you came to be the millennial force that God is turning you into.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, my pleasure.
I think it's always good to acknowledge when individuals step out in faith, God's leading you, but more so being a bridge,
right,
dividing the gap between the generations.
Goal. Absolutely. That's
and
what I
so
think
important.
I'm designed to do it.
Yes, so important that you're doing so. So a little bit about me. Again, Ashley Gurvitz, 32 years old, full of heart, passion, energy for community. But I think it's so important to realize why I'm able to take the stance that I am doing today is just by knowing my journey. One thing as millennials, I think it's very important to do is just understanding what is your path in life and why you are in a unique stance, just to be as purpose-filled as possible.
Why has God brought you? Exactly.
Yeah.
And how he's brought you.
Yes, and how he's brought. So I can say I could be the rambunctious little one of 5 for my parents, a very diverse household. I always joke and say we were like the United Nations growing up, right? Where my family, again, both were married before, but decided to come together out of love and realize the commonality out of all of us
and
was
there are a lot
love.
of millennials who are part of a blended family.
Yes,
Yeah, right.
absolutely. So with the family itself, being the baby of 5, I was always very much the stubborn, funny, annoying one to my older siblings because I would embrace the fact that I was adopted. And I'd be like, well, I was chosen. And like saying it and joking at an early age, I still am very thankful to see I was chosen for my own different call in life.
You have a relationship with your birth mother?
I do. So at the age of 23, I was reunited with my biological mother. In its own unique stance, just how God is, right? He placed it on her heart to answer a mother's cry. I realized at the time
So she sought you out.
Yes, she sought me out. Good old Facebook at that. Social media brought us together. And just thinking about the time frame in my life, I didn't know exactly what direction in life I had. More so, I kept, whether from a job aspect, relationship aspect, just life aspect, feeling like I was on that final stretch. I thought I saw a victory, and then nothing was moving forward. So it was a good time, her re-intersecting herself in my life. And what I learned during that time is she helped put a foundation to my life to make me further understand myself. And what that pretty much meant was I would have grown up in a very non-diverse community, would have been alone on my own.
Had you not been adopted?
Yes, if I hadn't have been adopted. And in society's way, I think people would say it would be wrong, like, oh, a mother gave her child up for adoption. No, her prayer was she wanted to give me the environment, a diverse environment, just as much as me.
Without realizing that she did that.
Yeah, exactly.
She actually, her decision, not to abort you, but to put you up for adoption, actually, if I'm piecing together from last week, fed into something she didn't even know about, because she placed you up for adoption. A family brought you in and caused you to get connected to some roots that led to what you're doing today.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
And to add in another layer with it, it could be from a lens of hurt or not, how people can perceive stuff, but where literally to know for 23 years, some in this world, when she said she lost me, they literally thought I was not here. And to have that moment of clarity and transparency, it really made me realize, what am I not doing and living spiritually in my own life? At that time too, I'll be honest, I walked away from the church. Not because... But
the divine hand of God was working the whole time.
He was working the whole time. And honestly, I felt like that moment in intersection, it was like, all right, where am I not living? Where am I not fully embracing who God wants me to be? So it honestly helped propel like this new journey, and it's been like a springboard of opportunity since then.
That brings me to something. That's some powerful stuff. I can literally in the spirit realm feel millennials being drawn to you, to this show, because here's a person of a multiracial background, who is working in social justice, who loves Jesus, and is making it clear. And even before that, God had his hand in bringing you to this city, to Eastern Star, to this table. And that's tremendous. You brought up some hurt. And I wanted to ask you, let me say it like this, let me segue it like this. A lot of millennials today are turned off by ecclesiastical church, traditional formal religion. And they just turned off on God and turned off on church leadership. And I know you mentioned a little bit about some church hurt a bit. Talk to me a little bit about your church hurt, first of all, and then secondly, what would be your message to other millennials who have experienced church hurt and their need to come back and give Christ, put their focus on Christ and not people so much?
And thank you for posing that question. I think that leads into more so a major clarion call for our generation to really take time and seek understanding of. I can say my church hurt was this. For me, I did have very much a family connection within a church, right? Where I had my, pastoral kid responsibilities. You show up, this is how you act. This is the word that's going to be given on Sunday. And you knew, and you would see how visibly, like, people were being moved to do good. But unfortunately, that same aspect was not transparent in every single aspect of life. So when I would go home, it would be a whole other story. So unfortunately, I think as that teen, you could say it was being rambunctious or not, I was just seeking something to move me as well with faith as well. And as a result, it actually allowed me to have, I guess, hashtag church hurt. So with it, I ended up kind of taking a little time away. But what I realized, I guess, kind of like the prodigal son, right? Like he took his time away, and once he was back, he wasn't going anywhere. So around that same time of learning about the adoption was when I actually made my commitment, and a firm commitment, I'm never leaving the church again. I realized during that time being away, you can't allow man to ever stand in the way of your faith. Have that direct time
you bring up
with them.
I think that's part of the problem, not just with millennials, but so often we have these relationships that are so fundamentally horizontal that we miss the vertical. It overshadows the importance of a vertical relationship with Christ.
Absolutely.
Tony Evans wrote a book about that, making sure there's a balance between your horizontal and vertical relationships in church. And it's really no one's to blame so much as the fact that we miss the cutoff time.
Yes.
Because we do learn Christ from people, but ultimately the goal. I was teaching a leadership conference I wrote a leadership curriculum, and one of the things I was teaching as I taught that curriculum yesterday was that good leadership ultimately renders itself unnecessary.
Wow, that's deep and true.
I really believe that. And so the people I said that to say, often we miss the cutoff time. People who have taught us Christ, often they don't know or we don't know when it's time to, okay, now let me shift my focus from this person to my Savior. Yes. Because ultimately it's a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that what would you say to the millennial who needs to come back to Christ because they've been hurt in church? Because I'm a firm believer. It's just an idiom that we use, but that church hurt is not so much church hurt, but people hurt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, what would you say to that millennial if you were looking at them? They're watching this show. They're in the camera.
Yeah.
And you would. What would you say to them? How would you get them back?
Yeah. I mean, I just say again, take the time. Know your story and see where God has truly provisioned you to get back to Him. You never realize that maybe taking that time to identify maybe your hashtag church hurt scenario is more so your accountability call to go back to the church. And you could help be the new access and gateway for others to feel like they can come a part of the church.
That's right.
And so I think that's very important to do. I can also share that by identifying that time with Christ, you have no one else that is interacting with what He's provisioned your heart for. He's given us a divine gift, our own individual gift, and we can never fully live out our gift unless you do sometimes have that time away from the body. Now you can go back in these spaces and figure out what your divine gift is. And I can share, like, during that time of we're learning of friends, they're like, I know I love church, but I just can't go in this normal body. Okay, but let's talk about it. Are you saying you're spiritual? Even the devil's spiritual.
That's right.
And you have to be, of course, mindful of your alignment, but also, too, I think having that story, going back in these spaces, you're able to, again, see the purity of what the body of Christ is supposed to be.
Supposed to be, right.
And within the church, be well. And I think sometimes, and be that millennial. If millennials are always being blamed to making moves in a certain way, heck, Jesus even ripped the curtains down. He flipped over tables.
Right.
But he did so in the means of
criticized and critiqued the Pharisees.
Yes.
In Matthew chapter 23 to their faces.
Yeah.
He talked to them that there was a group of hurting people who were remaining in their pain because you won't let go of your traditions.
Yes.
Right.
And so maybe that, again, is from a generational aspect we have to do. And I know it's been done, generations before, just as much. We see it in the principles right in the Bible.
Let me say this. Let me ask this, staying kind of on the whole, the notion of hurt and being in church. I'll address this way, Ms. Gurvitz. You got Parkland shootings. You've got a major school. There's a lot of schools. Yesterday was the 20th anniversary of Columbine, and we have a lot of pain in a lot of young people.
Yes.
Talk to me about why you think there's so much violence in our world today, and what can millennials do about that?
Yeah. Now, I think it's important to mention violence has always had some type of form in society.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yes. Now, the form of violence that's out is very indicative, I think, of the culture around us that we've set. So when we're dealing with guns, think about some of your games that we were playing from the videos.
Sure.
And sticking a label of a parental advisory is not stopping it.
The music, the violence.
Yeah, music, violence.
We see the recent murder of Nipsey Hussle.
Yeah.
We see, but 20 years ago, we saw it with Tupac.
Yes,
We saw it with Biggie.
Yes. Yeah. And I think what we have to see in society is we've been very much desensitized as far as accepting it versus seeing the sensitivity and its impact that it has on everybody else's life, being very much accountable of it.
What is the millennial? What do the millennials think about gun violence today? That the ones you deal with, what's the talk in the millennial circles about gun violence and Parkland shootings, and NRA, all that?
Honestly, we don't like it. I've been very thankful, although God hasn't blessed me with my own kids. I got a lot of community babies, right? And one of them in particular I'm very thankful for is leading a lot of the charges as a now freshman in college, spearheading big, massive rallies at our state house. And so I believe we all feel the same. Of course, this stuff has to stop. But more so, it can't stop unless we find ourselves not only speak what we speak on social media, live it out. Go into the communities where the desensitization has happened and go show them you can live a life without fear of, feeling like you have to carry a gun or anything like that. Now, I get it. Some parts of the community, it's normal to have it, but to know there are other steps in between. I think having crucial conversations, conflict resolution skills, just being there to love one another, that's a way of de-arming a lot of these issues of violence that's happening today.
Everything you said is true. You're absolutely right. I think another component of this is probably going to lead me to the importance of voting.
Yes.
And because I to be pointed for me, I think the current administration has a lot to do with the thrust of gun violence and gun play in America right now.
Yes.
The congresswoman who gave the comments about the 9/11 shootings, and she was off on her time when CARE started.
Yes.
CARE actually did start before 9/11.
Yes.
But it did become popular and was thrust onto the national scene as an organization after 9/11.
Yes.
But the president had orchestrated a actual video juxtaposing her with being anti 9/11 survivor person because she's a Muslim.
Yes.
And I think what's in the head is in the body.
Yes.
I think part of the uphill struggle that millennials will have and do have is because, along with the rest of us who are anti-gun violence, they have a president that's pro-gun violence, and he's fighting, and he's stirring the pot, and what in your circles, what are millennials saying about the president's conduct relative to these types of gun violence issues?
I think
other than arming more teachers,
right, and I'm like, that's totally backwards.
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
So let's stop gun violence by adding more guns.
Exactly.
That cannot possibly make sense.
Yeah. And it goes back into a bigger thing, even back to looking into Parkland, right, or some of the other issues with the Noblesville schools. Actually, my mom taught.
And when
there.
we say Parkland, we're talking about
Florida.
The Parkland, Florida shootings, mass shootings, where the young man. Just so our audience.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we have now a catalog in our mind of various shootings. Parkland, Sandy Hook. You're about to bring up the Noblesville shooting, 15 miles from where we're sitting.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we have to, I think, take a step back a little further and realize, who are we allowing lead us?
Yeah.
In this country. It doesn't matter if it is through a spiritual lens, so it's that moral integrity where we have to assess.
Right.
If they're the President of the United States, heck, down to our city county councilor.
Absolutely.
We have to assess that. Our mayor, everyone, assess
or
that.
Even your pastor.
Even your pastor,
You need to think about who you want spiritually advising you.
Yes.
Are they using the Bible? What is their moral thrust? For what is their sourcing? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Epistemologically, where do they get the information from?
Absolutely. Right. And with it, we have to see, instead of us sitting on the sidelines where we have our opinions about it, I mean, great, we can tweet about it, write a social media post, whatever, but let's do something more. Right. Let's make some moves to change it.
That's right.
Now, with it, I can say we definitely have some problems when we can go ahead and supply our teachers with guns, but we're not supplying the essential things to even see prosperity of our students. Like, where's the extra support for professional development, not only for the teachers, but our students too?
You're willing to give them guns and cut special ed treatment.
Yes.
You're willing to give them guns and try to cut free lunches. You're trying to give them gun, and Nancy give the teachers guns, while the education director that Trump has appointed has cut out literacy programs across the country. Yes. That's ridiculous, but we can't give them guns.
We can give them guns.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it in its own way, I feel like we're living more of the episodes of Zombie Land, if you want to just joke and say, but literally we've really dummied down democracy because we've allowed certain things to impact our intellectual growth and ability. I mean, if we instill fear, this idea of fight and flight, that will always put a pause on your education to be able to have the knowledge growth and intellectual development. So the fact our president, and even we got to look within our state, 54% of our state's budget biannuum goes to schools. They're not helping us down at the State House get the essential needs.
That's right.
So
where's that money?
Where's the money?
Right.
And I know it's not going.
So say that
schools.
Again, so our audience hears that.
Yeah.
It's
so
54%. I know it, but go ahead and say that again.
Yeah. So 54% on average every 2 years goes to our schools
of the biannual
state budget. Yes.
Right. And yet we're not seeing the state results in testing. We're not seeing the move on of all day kindergarten. Correct. We're not seeing the move on properly nationally based teacher salaries. We're not seeing that. Yeah. And we're not seeing a drop in student loans in our state either.
No, not at all. And even to add in another component, when we're seeing the result of afflictions within the community, within our households, that's rolling right into the classroom. How can we expect, and again, our children, but I call them our babies, because we got to love and nurture them from every aspect, even outside the age lens, right? To see they're getting all the academic growth that they need as well. And we have to address the lack of fundamental mental health in social support within our schools. No school should ever have to fear the lack of it. So,
you're a gold mine. I'm telling you, you're a gold mine. I'm going to bring you back. Will you come back?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to bring you back because I want to ask you one more quick question, and I'm going to close things out today. But I wanted to bring up and give you just a second to think about it. Mental health and the millennial.
Yes,
that's important. I had a guest on the show. Maybe a month ago to talk about mental health and millennials, and her name is Kamish Nunley. And I really believe that mental health awareness is a major part of a healthy society.
Yes.
In turn, I believe that some of what's happening in society today is because of the stigma. What are your thoughts about what can be done to help, simply to bring mental health awareness and to Indianapolis for millennials? And then my last question for you is going to be, what's next? In fact, here's what I'll do. I'll let you answer that one, and then I'll let you close out our show today with what should be next on the millennial agenda.
Okay, perfect. So I'll first and foremost say, if there's something I could say from a millennial aspect,
rather than mental health.
Yes, we have no problem speaking about mental health. I think one thing that's important is the fact we're being more transparent. A fact of
vital.
Yes, very vital. About self-care. Being okay to reach out to friends,
right?
Because
talk about it,
yeah, and even creating spaces for it. Now, I haven't been able to get out there yet, but it is on my checklist to make sure I get that there as soon as possible. But a millennial,
I'm willing to help.
Haven Yoga Studio, like right in the heart of an urban neighborhood. She's bringing yoga and peace and tranquility, meditation into
And the body
area.
of Christ needs to know it's not dangerous to meditate.
Right.
It's not You're not going to not be a Christian if you engage in yoga.
Yes.
You're not going to. You don't have to give up your relationship with Jesus Christ as your Savior.
Yes.
To center.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And even too with the church, we as like millennials, and I think it's starting to become more of a norm, hopefully an increasing norm within communities of color, seeing the spiritual, so the church and clinical working together.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes I would love to, you could pray it all out, but you can't just pray it all out.
Well,
there's some
the
chemical
praying
bodies
requires some engagement. Absolutely.
Yeah. Praying will help activate your healing.
You could pray to your blue in the face about, for example, a person has diabetes. If you don't make insulin or something, you're going to need to pray and take insulin.
Yes.
That's the way that is, and that's a part of the healing. I'm in a collaborative deal right now with a mental health facility to establish a relationship, an in-house relationship with them and my church.
Wonderful.
Because I see it as a responsibility.
Yes.
Of the body of Christ to minister holistically to the community.
Yes.
And if that's a concern in the community, it's a responsibility for the church.
Yeah.
Close us out today.
Yes.
You have been a fantastic guest as before, and so if you don't mind, just look into the camera and tell millennials who are watching what you see as the pressing responsibilities of millennials and their mission in this city and abroad right now, whether it's to vote or whether it's whatever it is. Just tell the audience, and I'll close us out.
Yeah. So millennials, everyone that's out there, where we can go ahead and say the time is now or we have to wait. No, get involved right now. Take a moment to see exactly where you are in life that is all a part of Christ's big plan for you, to see exactly where he's leading you to go serve next. So if God's put it on your heart, like the spirit of activism, to go make a difference, fighting to make changes on a policy level, go do it. I promise it will help you now create another pathway to go reach back and help others move forward. So do that. Whether it's in your heart of helping heal, go love one another more. Give that act of appreciation, kindness, because that alone can help not only get others the healing they need, you might find some extra healing within yourself. God's been placing on your heart to receive as well. Find the economic empowerment. One thing is, a form of gluttony is being selfish of certain ways. And it's not only just with what we consume food-wise, but what are you consuming mentality of, holding on to things. Go give back to others. Find your heart where you want to be the next Nipsey Hussle, find, but do so from a pure heart and go help our neighbors. You may be that spark and activation of not only them finding their purpose in life, but also being able to help find their pathway to their purpose, that God's provision even before they were brought on this earth.
Well, there you have it. God bless you,
yes,
Miss Ashley.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. You're a fantastic guest.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to come behind that and say anything. She said it for us. This has been a fantastic segment of Moves That Matter. Of course, I am your host, Dr. Clyde Posley. We're here on the Vision Stream Network, and you can get these shows on YouTube, my website, drclydeposley.com, whatever the case. Keep this in mind. In life, you are constantly making moves. Use your will, use your time, use your energy to make your moves that matter. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Clyde Posley. I'm going to see you next week, Tuesday, 7:30. God bless you.